Alrighty, we should be live. Let's just give a quick moment for everyone to get here. Looks like we're showing up on YouTube. Let me go into my live dashboard.
Oh,
The worst YouTube feature that has ever been made of all time.
Is
Okay.
it worse than their copyright claim system?
Okay, that's fair. Their copyright claim system is definitely worse than their live streaming platform. We got to make a Twitch account. I think we should do
Yeah.
that after this. For the next one, we'll have a Twitch account as well.
Yeah.
Oh wow, look at this. This is high praise here. Best YouTuber. I don't know about that.
They were talking to me.
Yeah, obviously. That's what I'm saying. It's like a little questionable.
Yeah.
One upload per year isn't really gonna cut it. Yeah, look. More evidence. Noah's better than Luke. There you go. Can't argue with that. Okay, so here's the plan. As you may have guessed from the title of this live stream, we are going to be talking about the original switch from PowerPC to Intel. So we're gonna segment that into two different keynotes, because as usual with an Apple keynote, you have like the historic bit that everyone remembers, and then there's a whole bunch of Steve Jobs talking about iChat. And we're not gonna focus on that part because we don't need Steve Jobs demoing how to use a calendar. We can figure it out. So we're gonna be watching WWDC 2005, which is where the transition was announced, and then we'll kind of look for similarities to our current situation. And then we're gonna watch Macworld 2006, which was almost exactly 6 months later. Or maybe 7. It was January 2006.
Yeah.
And that's where the first Intel Macs were announced. So we're going to watch both of those, or at least the important parts of both of those.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Noah, would you mind just vamping for a little bit? Because I got to switch to the part in the second keynote where it actually is. What's your take on the rate of this transition to Apple Silicon?
I don't know. First, I want to say I love this keynote where Steve Jobs is explaining the transition. I think I don't know, he just does it in a really entertaining way. Just kind of like builds up. He shows here's the problem that we're running into here. We can't get our chips to be fast enough and cost effective enough and all that stuff, and then he presents Intel as sort of this. It's just the showmanship of this one is just really good. I like going back and watching this one, so I'm excited to watch it again.
Yeah, I haven't seen this one in a decent bit, as a matter of fact. And I'm just noticing now on the second. Okay, it's so the second keynote, Macworld 2006, is 1 hour and 29 minutes, and it's all basically OS 10, and then the the iWork suite and .Mac.
Oh boy!
And the actual stuff that we're looking at doesn't start until 57 minutes into the keynote. Yeah.
Wow.
In WWDC 2005, we go 20 minutes in to get to the main event, which I guess isn't that different than what we have now. They usually save the big stuff for last. Like at WWDC last year, they did Catalina and iOS 13 before they talked about Mac Pro.
That's true.
So it does make sense. Maybe one of these days we can watch one of the old software events and just kind of look back at some of the software features. I don't know. I personally find them a little bit more boring than their big announcements, but who knows?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Look at that. We have Elise, my roommate, is here.
Yes, hello.
And Noah says hello. Oh. iChat is dead. Who uses that junk? Yeah, well, yeah, it's dead. It's called iMessage now and FaceTime. No one uses it because it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have. Wait a minute. I think we're about to be bombarded. I hear the stairs. Oh gosh.
Uh-oh. Oh,
yeah, she's here.
Noah! Did you
Hello.
Noah replied to my message?
Yeah, we just put it up on the
I
stream.
saw that!
Yeah,
Made my
hi.
day. Big fan.
Yeah,
Big
yeah,
fan.
Go
I'm
back
glad
to
I
work.
Big fan. Yeah, I know. I hate it.
She has a job. Imagine that. You have a job too, right, Noah? What a loser.
We don't talk about that.
Someone said in the chat, let me see if I can find this in here. It's A14Z plus Bionic. There you go. I've been trying to figure out what Apple's going to use for their, like, what are they going to call their family of Mac SoCs, as they've said.
Right.
There's a family, but what are they going to be called? The Adams family? Probably not.
The Smiths, the Joneses.
The Joneses. The Kardashians.
Hopefully.
I forgot to tweet out that we're live. Let me go ahead and tweet that link. I'm a professional. I was watching a movie. I kid you not. I was watching Oblivion with Tom Cruise, and it ended at 2:53, and now here we are.
Good timing.
Come watch the Intel transition! Exclamation point. All right, there we go. It's tweeted out. All right,
Nice.
so let's set the stage a little bit. Let's give some context. Not a whole lot of people. Oh, hang on. Just got to say, I don't know what this guy's on about. I'm not getting married. he was asking if you were getting married too, Noah. Apparently that's something that people are speculating about.
No plans yet, but
But anyway. So the context for WWDC 2005. So 2 years before this, Apple had been promising that they were going to get to 3 gigahertz. They were going to get the PowerPC G5 lineup, and it was going to be their next step. Obviously, PowerPC G4 was, what was that, 2002 and 3? I think was when they made that transition. But they were shooting for 3 gigahertz. They were shooting for multiple cores, because all the PowerPC stuff, at least except for the Mac Pro that has dual CPUs, those were all single core. So that's kind of the framework that we're coming from, and this was Steve Jobs. It had been known for a little while that there wasn't a super clear roadmap for PowerPC, and so this Keynote is their response to that and how they announced that they were going to get past that. So let's pull it up here, and we'll let Steve take it away.
Future looks like, and we look forward to telling you about Leopard.
Oh yeah, they just
So that's
announced
what's
Leopard.
up for Mac OS X Tiger. Now, let's go to a big topic: transitions. Let's talk about transitions. The Mac, in its history, has had 2 major transitions so far, right? The first one, 68K to PowerPC. And that transition happened about 10 years ago in the mid-90s. I wasn't here then, but the team then did a great job from everything I hear. And the PowerPC,
From everything I hear,
the PowerPC set Apple up
they ruined
for
Apple.
the next decade.
Oh, man.
It was a good move. The second major transition, though, has been even bigger. And that's the transition from OS 9 to OS 10 that we just finished a few years ago, the early part of this decade. This was a brain transplant. And even though these operating systems vary in name only by 1, they are worlds apart in their technology. OS 10 is the most advanced operating system on the planet, and it has set Apple up for the next 20 years. Today, it's time to begin a third transition. We want to constantly be making the best computers for you and the rest of our users. And so it's time for a third transition, and yes, it's true.
I love that. I love that.
We are going to begin the transition
So good.
from the PowerPC to Intel processors, and we are going to begin it for you now and for our customers next year. Now, why are we going to do this? Right?
So that's another. We're going to kind of pause periodically and talk about the parallels with what we're seeing now. That, you'll just notice, was pretty much the exact same timeline that that we're using right now. Mid 2005, they announced we're going to switch to Intel. It's going to begin for developers now, and it's going to be a 2-year transition for consumer products. That is exactly what's happening right now. Mid 2020, Apple Silicon is announced. We have a transition device, and then a 2-year transition for consumer products.
Yeah.
Didn't we just get through going from OS 9 to OS 10? Isn't the business great right now? Why do we want another transition? Because we want to be making the best computers for our customer looking forward. Now, I stood up here 2 years ago in front of you, and I promised you this. And we haven't been able to deliver that to you yet.
A rare admission of a mistake.
I think a lot of you would like a G5 in your PowerBook, and we haven't been able to deliver that to you yet. But these aren't even the most important reasons. The most important reasons are that as we look ahead, though we have great products right now, and we've got some great PowerPC products still yet to come, as we look ahead, we can envision some amazing products we want to build for you. And we don't know how to build them with the future PowerPC roadmap. And that's why we're going to do this. When we look at Intel, they've got great performance, yes.
Rip.
But they've got something else that's very important to us. Just as important as performance is power consumption. And the way we look at it is performance per watt. For 1 watt of power, how much performance do you get?
Yeah.
And when we look at the future roadmaps projected out mid-2006 and beyond, what we see is the PowerPC gives us sort of 15 units of performance per watt. But the Intel roadmap in the future gives us 70. And so this tells us what we have to do. Now, this is not going to be a transition that happens overnight. It's going to happen over a period of a few years. Again, we've got great products right now, and we've got some great PowerPC products in the pipeline yet to be introduced. But starting next year, we will begin introducing Macs with Intel processors in them, and over time, this transition will occur. So when we meet here again, this time next year, our plan is to be shipping Macs with Intel processors by then.
They hit that goal.
And when we meet here again 2 years from now, our plan is that the transition will be mostly complete.
They hit that goal as well.
And we think it will be complete by the end of 2007. So this is a 2-year transition.
That's another important note. Some people were talking about that in the chat. They said it's a 2-year transition. They did it in 10 months.
Yeah.
They did it in 10 months. They actually, arguably, of maybe not greater performance, but of significant importance, was they actually did a couple of their Macs twice in 2006. So in the next keynote, we're going to watch the MacBook Pro, and I think the iMac might be in it. I don't remember. They had a whole bunch of them right at the beginning of 2006, but they actually did all of those computers again at the end of 2006 because when they started the transition, they were using Core Duo, but by 2006, they had Core 2 Duos, which are 64-bit, and so then they did those a second time. So not only did they transition it, but they actually beat their timeline and did it twice.
That's Apple.
So that's Apple for you. Well, at least it used to be. We'll see if it still is.
So, first transition, 68K PowerPC. Second transition, OS 9 to OS 10. We're going to begin a third transition from the PowerPC to Intel processors. There are 2 major challenges in this transition. The first one
smart water.
is making Mac OS 10 sing on Intel processors, right? Now, I have something to tell you today. Mac OS 10 has been leading a secret double life for the past 5 years.
Again, that's also, we've seen parallels to that today.
Yeah.
There have been rumors to this effect, but this is Apple's campus in Cupertino. Let's zoom in on it. In that building right there, we've had teams doing the just-in-case scenario.
That's the secret
And
underground
our
bunker.
rule and our designs for OS 10 must be processor independent, and that every project must be built for both the PowerPC and
It's
Intel
uncanny
processors.
how
And so
similar
today,
this
for the
is.
first time,
Yeah.
I can confirm the rumors that every release of Mac OS X has been compiled for both PowerPC and Intel. This has been going on for the last 5 years.
Yep. I mean, you look at Catalyst, same thing.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Just in case.
So Mac OS X is cross-platform by design, right from the very beginning. So Mac OS X is singing on Intel processors, and I'd just like to show you right now. As a matter of fact, this system I've been using here,
See, that's the same
Let's go
exact
have a
thing that
look.
they did at WWDC this year.
let's go
Yeah.
have a look here.
Even with the monitor and then a table underneath it, but they had the Pro Display XDR.
All right, there you go. So,
It's also interesting to note that they just showed a Pentium 4 3.6 gigahertz with 2 gigabytes of DDR2 RAM. If you know anything about Macs, you might be going, well, what Mac is that? It wasn't a Mac. They never shipped anything with the Pentium in it. So again, as we have this year, people have been saying, oh, well, the A12Z is going to be in the next MacBook Air. A12Z is not going to ship in a Mac. That's not going to happen. So that kind of gives you a floor. Like you look at a Pentium 4, Core Duo, Core 2 Duo, Xeon, all faster by a huge margin. So I think you should definitely be expecting the A12Z, which is already a very solid chip, is the bare minimum. The bare minimum. And that's pretty exciting.
we've been running on an Intel system all morning, and let me just go, do a few simple things. Baseball, boom.
Baseball, you know.
All the normal stuff just works. Let's
It's
go
like
back
the same
to these
thing when they were
dashboard
showing
widgets.
like Word, and they were
we
like,
just
"Oh,
brought
you can
out.
drag this image
they
around
are.
in Word." It's like the same,
Yeah.
And
the same like.
we can even
like, why is that what
let's
you're going to choose
you
to
know.
show off?
go find
That's funny.
calendar event here.
Oh, again with
Very
the calendars. Steve loves
Let
his
me
calendars.
go show you mail. There's mail right here.
All right,
Wow.
all right. More
Safari.
baseball.
Yeah.
Here's the new widget stuff.
They have the
Find some
internet
widgets.
on Intel?
Boom.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wait, widgets,
Apple.com.
widgets.
Let me show you.
Yeah.
Widgets then, widgets now. There you go.
There you go.
Loading in 4,000 photos. Here we are.
Wow. Is there something in there?
And let me go ahead and play you a movie.
I didn't see there.
Here's let me get rid of this. Here's a movie trailer here.
From Doug Lyman, director of The Bourne Identity. Brad
I
Pitt.
should probably skip this. Don't want to get a claim.
That's probably a good idea. Yay.
I like how
We are
the
very
demo
far
is
along on
open
this.
mail,
We're not
open
done,
internet,
which
play
is
a
why
video.
we're going to put it in your hands
Yep.
real soon so that you can help us finish it.
This is going to look really
Now,
familiar in
The
about
second major challenge
15 seconds.
is your apps, right?
Yep.
So let's take a look at how you're going to make Intel versions of your apps. You can separate code into kind of 4 different buckets: widgets, scripts, Java, Cocoa apps, which of course are made with Xcode, Carbon apps, which can be made with Xcode,
We'll have no
and
idea an
Carbon apps, which
explanation
can be
of this
made
in a
with
second.
MetroWorks. They each have different properties. Widgets, scripts, and Java, they just work, right? They just run. Nothing to do. Cocoa apps, a few minor tweaks and a recompile, and they just work. Carbon with Xcode, more tweaks and a recompile, they're going to work. And in MetroWorks, the first thing you have to do is move to Xcode. So, let's take a look at this again. Widget scripts in Java just work. Cocoa apps, literally a few days, and your Cocoa app's going to be running with an Intel version. Carbon apps, it's going to be a few weeks, a few more tweaks, although there are exceptions to that. We may be overstating it here, which we'll see in a minute. And in MetroWorks, again, we don't know. You've got to get to Xcode. So the key here is getting to Xcode. Now, we started evangelizing Xcode 18 months ago. how is everyone doing on Xcode?
I just want to pause real quick. Noah, do you want to give some clarification about what he's talking about here? I don't fully follow, just because this is more programming stuff and also 15 years old.
Yeah, sure. I don't know the full like details because I haven't worked with all of these technologies, but just to give you an idea, basically Carbon was like a very old. Basically, all of these are frameworks for making apps. So like the latest framework that Apple's pushing is Swift UI, and then before that it was AppKit for the Mac and UI Kit for the iPhone and the iPad and all that stuff. But these are even older than that. So Carbon is like a very old one. I'm just looking it up now to because I've heard of it. I don't know too much about it, but basically Carbon's very old. It was apparently backwards compatible with Mac OS 8 and 9. So it was kind of from back when the OS 10 shift was actually happening, or I guess even before that. And then Cocoa was the one that came after that, and both of them, I mean, Carbon I think is just deprecated. You don't use it anymore. Cocoa, maybe some of the older stuff is written in it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not fully versed in all of this kind of stuff, but
by and large, it's
frameworks.
a similar thing of recompiling and tweaking. Although it actually seems like this transition is supposedly going to be more simple because they're basically just saying recompile in Xcode, and your Mac apps will work.
Right. Yeah. So it's basically the same ideas that they're saying. Like, so Carbon and Cocoa are these frameworks that they're the older frameworks, whereas like now Swift UI AppKit is sort of the new stuff. And again, it's the same idea, is that these frameworks work on both PowerPC and Intel, and like today the frameworks work on both Intel and Apple Silicon, and so it's the same idea as that you should be able to just recompile, and generally things should work, but there may be some tweaks that you have to make if you're doing like platform specific things. So yeah, it's basically the same idea, just with technologies from 15 years ago, which makes sense, of course.
Yeah, I also want to bring up, someone had a super chat. We'll bring that up on the screen here. Do we think that other brands will also switch to ARM and that x86 might become obsolete someday? I don't know that that's where we're headed. ARM and x86 have coexisted for a while. I believe Raspberry Pis have used ARM for ages. Smartphones have been using ARM. We're now getting to the point where ARM can be scaled into an actual desktop platform, which was not the case in previous years because it was mainly lower end, low power efficiency, or high power efficiency, low power draw stuff. But I don't think that companies like AMD or Intel, which are really the only two companies that have any sort of market share using x86, I don't foresee that changing. If anything, what this switch is going to do is bring competition back to the CPU space with more than just two players. And as we all know, when Apple starts doing something, other people are going to do it too. So I think Windows is going to be supporting ARM processors pretty soon. There's going to be other companies making devices with ARM processors in them. But no, I don't think x86 is going anywhere.
No,
I think that would be weird.
I think they the different platforms have different uses and or the different architectures are used in sort of different areas. And I guess, like ARM processors are kind of becoming bigger now that they power all the mobile stuff and Internet of Things and all that, and now they're moving into the tablets and the computers and all that. So it's definitely getting bigger, and like you said, it'll definitely be more competition, but I think x86 is still going to have its place at least for a long time, because it's a different architecture. It's a different like fundamental set of principles that went into designing it. So it has different uses, and there's obviously a lot of overlap, but no, it's not going anywhere.
And someone also pointed out Microsoft won't be available on future Macs. I think he means Windows 10 Boot Camp. I don't know if that's a permanent thing, because obviously right now Windows does support ARM processors, but it's useless. No one's supporting it. It's a complete waste of time. If anything, I think this switch could motivate Microsoft to support it more, potentially bring back Boot Camp in a few years when it's more widespread, and potentially, if this transition motivates other companies to start adopting the ARM standard and use ARM processors, maybe Qualcomm will start making desktop chips or stuff like that. Then you could potentially start seeing the Windows side of things start to support it. And then you would essentially get to a point where I think probably 10 years from now, it's going to be like you ARM versus x86 isn't even going to be a thing. It's going to be like, do you choose AMD or Intel? You know, which one gives you better value? I don't think it's going to be an issue in a few years.
Yeah.
All right, now I do want to skip ahead a little bit in our keynote here and see if we can talk about. Okay, who's this guy? All right, we don't need to hear from this guy. Yes, they have one of those classic demos from an app developer. We don't need to see that. Okay, here we go. Here's something that will look familiar. Let's put old Stevie boy back on the screen here, shall we?
There he is.
We've got an awesome technology called Rosetta that we're going to be shipping with these new machines. And Rosetta
Familiar.
allows us to translate PowerPC to Intel. It lets us run existing PowerPC binaries on Intel. So existing apps run. It is a dynamic binary translator. It runs existing PowerPC apps. It is transparent to users. It's nothing like Classic where you're loading a whole operating system. This is totally transparent.
Classic.
You just click on a PowerPC binary, it starts translating. And that's it. Users don't even know. It's lightweight, no big memory footprint, and it's pretty fast.
Enough.
So most users
Fast
will not even know
it said.
that they're running it, which is fantastic. So I'd like to just show this to you right now if I could.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, go for
Let
it.
me just go over
This
here
is your
and
show.
Yeah.
got some apps right here.
We're listening to
So
you.
I'm just going to open a Word document.
Oh, again with Word.
Oh, man.
And this is a Word document.
Is he gonna move a picture around?
And,
I hope so.
I'll go up and it just thinks it's running on a PowerPC. Boom, boom, boom. Whatever it's doing. Let me open another one here.
Oh, you can open more than one?
Boom.
Oh,
Whoa!
man.
Very simple.
Oh, there's pictures.
Let me open an Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, no way you could open 2 Word documents and an Excel spreadsheet. Oh my god, he did it!
Oh my. This is insane.
How is this possible?
Let me open Quicken.
And you can't do this on PowerPC.
Wait, what? Quicken?
Oh, look at all those
Boom.
windows.
Oh my
let me
gosh.
Open Photoshop.
No way you could open Photoshop. That's ridiculous.
Now you'll notice when Photoshop
Oh, look
opens,
at
it's also loading in all the
CS2.
plugins. All the plugins, again, are translated. So they all work fine.
It's taken a little bit of time because remember Rosetta runs translation at launch, not install, if I'm remembering
Right.
correctly. Yeah, look at him.
Steve's bobbing
There's
his
Photoshop.
head.
He's bobbing
Open another
around.
Photo so you can see how fast it. Boom. And again,
Boom.
you know, you can
Boom.
It's a screamer.
Oh, it sure is.
go through stuff and do whatever you want to do. So that is
Oh, that's
Rosetta.
beautiful.
I love going
These
through
PowerPC
stuff and doing
apps
whatever I
just
want to
run.
do.
And that's what we're going to have for our users, because every app isn't going to be universal from day one. So, OS 10.
All right, let me pause it real quick. So Noah, do you want to compare and contrast Rosetta versus Rosetta 2?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's the same idea of running the previous architecture on the new one. I guess the main difference is that Rosetta 2 can translate at install. It's either at install or it's the first time you launch it. It depends, but the point is that as far as I can tell, the original Rosetta, whenever you ran the app, it would, like I said, dynamic translator. It would translate as it was running, so it would sort of read all the instructions and do the translation live, whereas Rosetta 2 can actually do the translation ahead of time and create another binary, another executable that it can then run on all future times, which, you know, would obviously be a lot faster because you have the translation done and you don't have to keep translating it every single time.
And that's another benefit. It sort of ties into Universal 2, which basically, as Noah told us before, an app on a Mac is just a folder with a fancy icon, and
Right.
it'll have two different executables. So in theory, and one thing that I'm actually going to be interested to test out is if you install Big Sur and all your apps on an external drive, in theory, you would be able to plug it into an Apple Silicon Mac, run everything, shut it down, plug it into an Intel Mac, and boot it up and continue just as you normally would, because each application is both an Apple Silicon and an Intel app, as
Right,
far as I
yeah.
know.
Yeah, that's the idea, is that when it does the translation at install time or at first launch time, it doesn't replace the Intel version. It
Yeah.
sits alongside. It's like the idea with Universal and Universal 2 is that the developer themselves can ship both versions, PowerPC Intel or, you know, Intel Apple Silicon. But if they don't do that, which is how it'll be at the beginning, then Rosetta 2 will basically makes the Universal app for you. It makes the Apple Silicon version. But it doesn't get rid of the Intel version. So yes, you could switch between the two versions, you know, as you needed.
And it's also important to note, because some people are probably confused, that you know, why bother recompiling your apps? Why bother taking advantage of Universal 2 or Xcode 12 or any of that if it's just going to translate the app for you? You do run into a performance penalty, and I mean, we don't know yet because we don't have our hands on it, but there's probably going to be some bugs and things that don't work quite right through Rosetta 2. But I think the main one is going to be just you're not going to be able to get your full performance. When you look at the Geekbench scores that we saw of the Apple Developer Transition Kit, the A12Z in a normal Mac score, or in an iPad Pro rather, scores about 4,600, I believe, something around there. I can check that. But this is Geekbench 5, by the way. So I'm just looking up real quick. Yeah, 45, 4,600 is what you're looking at for an A12Z in an iPad Pro, 11 or 12 inch, doesn't really matter. 4,600 multi-core, 1,100 single-core, which by the way is crazy good. That's insane. Let's just get a MacBook Pro 2018. So a 6-core i9 2018 MacBook Pro, which I believe you have, Noah.
Yeah.
Scores 4,900. So it's already knocking on the door of a 15-inch MacBook Pro with a Core i9 in it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Now, in the transition kit running through Rosetta 2, it doesn't score quite as high, more like 2,600 to 2,900, depending on what's going on, which still puts it ahead of a MacBook Air running in translation. And keep in mind, with Rosetta 2, it only uses the 4 high-performance cores, not the 4 high-efficiency cores. So you're not getting anywhere near the total amount of performance, and you're running it in translation, and it's still beating out an existing MacBook Air with the best that Intel has to offer in a 7-watt package. That's what they've got, and they're still not keeping up with a freaking tablet. That's
true.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let me just skip ahead here. Actually, we'll just put it back up on the screen. Let's see what Steve's got in store for us.
All right.
Singing on Intel
Soon we'll
processors.
switch over to the next one.
Xcode 2.1 to generate universal
I want to see him
binary.
talk about the transition kit.
And Rosetta
Yeah.
to run PowerPC apps before they're universal.
The
How do you
hammer
get your
on the
hands on all
Xcode
this
icon
stuff?
is backwards.
We
from
want
how
you to
it
have
is
your hands
now.
on all this stuff now.
Is it really?
So you can help us finish it, and so you can
Yeah.
get
Let me
started
look.
creating your universal binaries. And we have created a developer
Oh,
transition
yeah.
kit for you. This developer transition kit has got
Again,
a
looks
3.6
familiar.
gigahertz Pentium 4 in it.
Yep.
Inside of Power Mac.
There's your Pentium 4.
OS 10.4.1, our pre-release of the Intel version. Xcode 2.1 to generate universal binaries, a universal binary porting guide that's quite good. It is a development platform only. This is not a product. This will never be shipped as a product. It's just for you guys to get started in development.
That's
And
exactly
actually, we
the
have
same
to
as what
return
we
them
have
by
right
the end
now.
of 2006 because
Yep,
we don't
gotta
want them
return
floating
them.
around out there.
Gotta return them,
These
yeah.
are not products. But we're going to get them to you now. They're for select and premier ADC members only. And we're going to price it at $9.99. And you can order them today. We'll be shipping them within 2 weeks, so you don't have to carry them home. And we'll get them out to you real fast. So
Don't have
that's
to
the
carry 'em
development
home.
environment, and you should be able to take all this and create universal versions of your apps.
So that's another direct parallel.
Yeah.
They were running this whole time in the keynote. They were running on what was essentially a Power Mac with Intel guts. In WWDC this year, they were running a Mac Mini with Apple Silicon guts. Neither of which actually shipped to people. One thing that's interesting though is this developer transition kit was $1,000 and you had to return it, whereas now it's what is it, 500 and you have to return it.
Yeah.
So I think that says a lot. And keep in mind that's before inflation in 2005, so that's probably like $1,200 or $1,300 today.
Yeah.
So, and you don't even get to keep the thing. So I think that says a lot about how much more affordable Apple Silicon is compared to Intel. That's going to be another huge difference. Because I believe they licensed PowerPC from PowerPC, and they licensed Intel from Intel. They don't have to license Apple Silicon from anything. It's their own chips, which means their own production costs. They don't have to pay a premium. Because when you buy a chip from Intel, you've essentially got, like when you, one of the big benefit that this is going to be, especially for laptops, is you essentially cut out a middleman. Because the way it currently works is Intel goes to their factory and they make a processor. And then they say, here we have our brand new processor, and we would like you to put it in your devices. And then a company says, we are looking to make a laptop and we want to put your processor in it. And they say, here, we will now sell you this processor. And they put it in their laptop, and then they say, hey, we want to sell you this laptop. So you've got two transactions going on. You've got Intel making their chips, selling them to manufacturers, and the manufacturers putting those in their products and selling them to you. With Apple Silicon, you don't have to do that. Just like on an iPhone, Apple just makes whatever they want, put it in their stuff, and then you buy it. Which it doesn't sound, it sounds like a semantic difference, but with Intel, you have, just because you have that extra transaction, you have one more area of inflation of your price, because Intel's making money selling it to manufacturers who want to sell it to you for more than that so they can make money. And that's why a quad-core chip in the 2020 MacBook Pro, which I can pull up right now. Yes, Core i5 1038NG7. That is the 10th gen chip in a 13-inch MacBook Pro. That is an expensive processor. Costs $320 to manufacturers, which is insane. Like you can get you can get what is like a 3700X 8-core AMD desktop chip for that kind of money. $320 is what they're charging. And by the way, that processor scores 4150 in Geekbench, under the score that you get from an A12Z. And it's a $320 chip, which is why it's in the $1,800 MacBook Pro, because you're already putting in $320 per computer to get that processor in there. Yeah. With Apple Silicon, you don't have to do that. The A12Z costs somewhere around $90 for Apple to manufacture, which is why it's in an $800 tablet. I read a report, the A13, take a gander, take a guess. What do you think an A13 costs?
The A13? That's
like you would find in the current crop of iPhones.
All right. I would think, I don't know, around $50. It's gotta be less.
$29.
Really?
$29.
Wow.
Also, someone just said, oh, that's not it. Someone said Apple does not license ARM, idiot. That's not how it works.
There's an argument going on in the comments.
What are they arguing?
They're arguing about if ARM is open source and it doesn't have to be licensed, or if it actually has to be licensed. From what I can tell, I was just doing a brief search, is that Apple probably does pay some amount of money to ARM for the licensing, but I would imagine it's probably less. And of course, Apple's making the processors themselves, so they're just licensing the ARM architecture, but they're actually making all the processors themselves. So so it still ends up being
that's what people. Yeah, I understand the confusion there. They license the architecture. They don't license the processors. That's the difference. Right. With Intel, you're not just buying an x86 architecture. You're buying an Intel processor. Apple makes their own processors. Other people make processors with the ARM instruction set, like Qualcomm. And I think there's other companies too. I can't think of any off the top of my head. I don't know which one Raspberry Pi uses. But those are all other companies who have licensed ARM, which has an upfront cost, and then they have royalties as well, just like normal licensing. But it's obviously significantly less than buying the processors pre-built from Intel. And also people are saying Apple does license some technologies. Yeah. Apple buys their displays from Samsung. They buy batteries from other manufacturers. They're all custom fabricated, but they're not, like, there's no factory that has an Apple logo on it. That's just not how technology manufacturers work. But in the case of processors, it is, because they're literally going to Intel and striking deals and buying processors from them. And now they don't have to do that. They are able to cut their costs. So someone just pointed out, they put an A13 in a $400 iPhone. Absolutely. The A13 is already outperforming. Let me pull this up actually. iPhone SE on Geekbench. And keep in mind, Geekbench is not the be all and end all for performance. Don't get it twisted. Geekbench is not a very demanding test, but it does give you some comparisons because it's universal. So an iPhone SE scores looks like about 2,800 to 3,200 in Geekbench 4. Samsung, let's do an S20. Yeah, so an S20 Plus scores 2,300. So an A13 in a $400 iPhone is already scoring ahead of flagship phones from other manufacturers that cost, $1,000+. The S20 Plus 5G has a Qualcomm chip that scores similar to an A13, but it's also worth keeping in mind that the A13 is about to get superseded in about a month and a half to 2 months with the A14. So that's its own thing. Now, let me see here. Going back to our keynote for a moment. The rest is like a Microsoft demo, which no one cares about.
What about the one where they render the video and they do the side-by-side comparison?
Is that from this keynote? Because I remember they did one of those. They did one of those in the late 90s when they were comparing PowerPC to Intel to show that PowerPC was faster. It was like a movie poster. Is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah, it was a movie poster. That's what it was from?
Yeah, that was from like 1999. That was when they were showing how they could beat Pentium.
Okay, yeah, because I just remember the movie poster thing. I guess I got the events mixed up.
Yeah, also a good one.
Yeah.
Let's get the original MacBook Pro at Macworld 06. We'll make it a little bit bigger. How's that look? All right, looks good. So this is now January 2006. So we're just coming off of the transition is announced exactly 15 years ago. at WWDC 05, and they were setting up this new framework, and now we're about to see the results of that with the first Intel Macs. Now, it is important to note that just like we have this time, there were PowerPC Macs that came out in between these two keynotes. The Power Mac G5 came out in October. I think there was a PowerBook update as well as an iMac update with PowerPC in 2005. And those were all in October, which is very close to this transition. So it was a little bit strange. But here we have mid-January 2006.
Oh, gotta drink that smart water.
Now,
Yeah.
let's talk about the computer systems themselves.
Let me drink my smart water.
We're making some of the best products we ever had.
It's a pretty big lineup.
We've had a really good
Yeah.
year with Mac. We started off the quarter,
Oh,
couple of years, selling over a million.
this graphic.
Look at that!
Better every quarter
With
after.
the
But
granite.
the biggest news this year,
Oh, man.
of course, was that we announced that we were going to shift
Skeuomorphism
using
is, I don't miss
Intel
it.
processors.
Yeah.
Good riddance, I say.
And we announced this at our developer conference this last spring. We announced that by June of this year, June of 06, we would be shipping Macs with Intel processors. So I want to give you an update today. How are we doing?
Oh, I forgot about this. Yeah.
I remember that too, and I forgot which one it was in. Yeah, this is a good one.
Oh my gosh.
Paul Ottolini.
Wow.
Look at him. He's like, why did you make me do this?
Steve, I want to report that Intel's ready.
Oh, man.
Wow. Wow, that is so embarrassing.
that was
That poor guy.
Oh no, look at them, they're still. Oh no.
Oh no.
Well, I can report to you that Apple's ready too.
Oh, that was so cringy.
Oh my god.
That's good. Did you hear
We
that?
started a partnership less than a year ago
Ah, that's
to
so
make
funny.
this happen. And our teams have worked so hard together, nights, weekends, to make this happen in record time. And I want to thank you and your team for all the help. It's been incredible how our engineers have bonded and how well this has gone.
Well, thank you, Steve. And the collaboration from our side couldn't have been better in terms of working with Apple. It was energizing, it was challenging, it was fun. We did inside
Someone
of a year
said get a
something which
room,
people
and I
felt
was just
couldn't be
thinking
done. We had
that.
over 1,000 people at Intel working on this project.
That's funny.
In its entirety, what it reminded me most about was a quote that Bob Noyce, our founder, said almost 30 years ago. He said, "Don't be encumbered by history. Go out and create something wonderful." Well, we did, and we did it together.
And we did it together. Oh, that's so nice.
Oh man. Sounds like they're getting married.
You know, one of the biggest reasons that we decided to switch to using Intel processors is because what drives us is wanting to make the best personal computers in the world. And it became very clear that the way to do that was to use some of your newest technology that you'd be rolling out this year. And we are thrilled with it. We can't wait to tell you about it. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Thanks.
Oh,
That's
that's
so weird
nice.
because they're like trying to make it seem genuine, but it's like so scripted. I don't know.
And it was like turned towards the audience, yeah.
Yeah. Ugh.
So, a little ahead of schedule. Today, we are going to roll out the first Mac with an Intel processor. It is the first of a new generation of Macs. So without any more fanfare, it is the iMac. The iMac is an incredible computer, as you know. It's got a built-in iSight camera, for video conferencing right out of the box.
I think that was the
It's
only
got
Mac at the time
Apple
with
remote
the built-in
front
eyesight
row
camera.
for the best
Oh,
meeting
the front
experience
row.
on the planet.
Front row.
Remember?
Couldn't be
Wait,
happier
we got to
with it.
tell
It's got
everyone
an
about.
incredible reception.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember in school for the
Of course
longest
I
time?
remember.
So our public school system. Noah and I went to the same high school and middle school, not the same elementary school. But all the way back, all of that time, front row was installed on these computers, but it was blocked. They wouldn't allow you to use it. So what would happen was, what would you like? If you brought in an Apple remote, you could trigger it.
No, it wasn't that. It was a key command, like Command Shift.
That's what it was.
Or something. It was
Yes.
some key command.
The keyboard shortcut would bring up front row, but it wouldn't actually allow it to open. So it would just bring up the pop-up saying that it was blocked over and over and over and over again. So and we used to call it front rowing people's computers because you had to restart it to get it to stop.
Yeah.
Oh my
the
gosh.
pop-up-
And people
the
would like
pop-up
do it
would
to the
come.
teachers.
Oh man, that was so good. Yeah, it would be like, you can't open the app and you'd hit OK, and then like 10 seconds later it would come back, and the only way to stop it was to restart the computer. So you just run up to your friend and hit the key combo and front row them.
It was so funny. Like we used to do that when there would be like a group project and they would all leave because we had like MacBooks in the classroom, like the MacBook, the white plastic ones.
Yeah.
And so like the group would go outside and they'd leave all their computers there, and then you just run around and key command all of them, and then they'd all come back and be like, you got us. Those were peak nerd pranks that Noah and I were aware of at the time.
That was good.
Oh man, those were the good old days. I don't know why they even bothered to block front row. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do in front row?
Yeah, like iTunes worked.
Couldn't put anything
iTunes
on it.
wasn't blocked.
Yeah, why block front row if you're not gonna block iTunes? It was very strange.
Matter of fact, it's got the best reviews of any product we've ever released. Walt Mossberg, one of the tougher critics out there, said recently, "No desktop offered by Dell or HP or Sony or Gateway can match the new iMac
Gateway.
G5's combination of power, elegance, simplicity, ease of use, built-in software, and security." And then he summed it all up when he said, "It's the gold standard of desktop PCs." So, we're going to put an Intel processor inside a new iMac.
Is someone mowing
How
their
do we
lawn
make
near you,
something this
Noah?
good even
Yes.
better? Well,
Sorry.
we're going to
That's
offer it
funny.
in the same sizes, 17 and 20 inch, because our customers love these things. We're going to offer it in the same
Someone just-
award-winning design, which is to cause people to say, well, where did the computer go?
Well,
We're
where
going
did
to
the
offer it
computer
with
go?
the same features, the same built-in eyesight camera, front row, the Apple remote, and all the other great features. And we're going to offer it for the same prices. So, what's different?
I like how they phrase that as a feature. We're gonna change nothing except the processor. Isn't that amazing? It's
Yeah.
the same computer. That's the thing that's I think going to be interesting here as we see in this keynote. The differences, because this is obviously with WWDC 2005, we were able to compare that because we're in that same position now. But this is now uncharted territory. This is what we could expect in October as well as next year.
Right.
Or this could give us clues as to what to expect. I don't know about but I would be pretty disappointed if the designs don't change.
Yeah,
I mean, we know the iMac is gonna change designs.
Yeah,
but
there's like all the rumors and the rounded corners and all that. Like,
Yeah.
like, especially with that, especially with all those rumors, I would be really disappointing. But I think they will. Even if they do, like, they refresh the iMac with a new Intel chip before they switch it over. Even if they do something like that, fine. But I do think, and I really hope that they're gonna do
it just seems like this would make sense, because I mean, first of all, Apple, if you look at the MacBook Pro, they've always had a 4-year redesign cycle, and then the 16-inch MacBook Pro was like okay, it's not a design change, but it's not it's not the same design, but it's not a redesign. And then you get like the 13-inch MacBook Pro, where it's almost exactly the same design, but with the Magic Keyboard, the MacBook Air. And so we're like, wait, so why we're not going to redesign it, or are we going to redesign it? What's going on here? And I think this is where it would make sense for them to change their designs. They didn't do that with the switch to Intel because PowerPC and Intel used pretty similar, like the power and the performance was different, but they were similar in terms of like the cooling that you needed. That's what makes Apple Silicon different. Apple Silicon produces so much less heat that I think it makes sense to redesign products around that new possibility, and around the new changes in Big Sur. I mean, it looks like it's begging for rounded screens and touch screens on the Mac. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the control center, the rounded everything, like, yeah, definitely.
And I don't know, it just seems, from a marketing perspective, you have to convince people to take that leap and make that switch. And I think the best way to do that is a complete overhaul.
Yeah.
Like, round the corners, make them thin, fanless designs, crazy performance. I don't know, some people have been thinking that they're going to put wireless charging in the palm rests of the MacBooks. I don't know if that's going to happen, but so you got to do something like that to make it stand out. Mini LED, that would be another one that I would really want to see.
Yeah, that's true. And Face ID, I really
Yeah,
want Face ID. And it's so perfect.
That seems so obvious.
That's the thing. The Mac is it's literally sitting and you're looking directly at it with your face. It's the perfect, even better than a phone or an iPad. It's the perfect system to have Face ID.
Because on an iPad, you can rotate it. So it has to have Face ID that works from any orientation. With a MacBook, you're always in frame. You're always, like, you don't even have to worry about the angles. Because with an iPhone, it's designed so that it can unlock at, like, let's see, this is the angle right here. I don't know if you can see that. This is the angle where it unlocks. You're never going to be at that angle with a MacBook. You're almost always looking pretty much more or less straight on. So it seems so obvious that you would put Face ID in a MacBook or an iMac. I mean, there's so much room inside an iMac.
Yeah.
Have you ever opened one of those things up? You could fit a whole other iMac in there. There's so much empty space in that. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like it's just begging for a new design to go with the transition.
Yeah.
Sort of in the same way that the Retina MacBook was the transition to the current design language: metal hinge, space gray, thinner, no glowing Apple logo, butterfly keyboard, rip. That whole design, it seems like that design is run its course. I like it still, but we could use something new.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's find out what's different about this Intel iMac, shall we?
Well, what's different is that the new iMac Intel processor is 2 to 3 times faster than the iMac G5. 2 to 3 times faster.
You can get those kind of gains? Could you imagine?
That is because we are building in Intel's latest and greatest technology, the new Intel Core Duo chip. This is an amazing chip. It's got 2 processors on one die, a dual processor.
Whoa!
And a 2 megabyte
That's
L2
insane.
cache. Each of these
do that?
processors is in itself faster than the G5, and there's 2 of them. And we're building this in to the new iMac, and we've got the numbers which speak for themselves. So let's take a look at them.
A good old Apple
The
chart.
iMac G5 and the iMac Core Duo. Let's take a look at spec marks. Spec 2000, integer performance, the most important benchmark of computer performance.
I use it all the time.
10.2 on the iMac G5.
That's pretty good.
32.6
Whoa!
on the iMac Core Duo. 3.2x. And these are using the best compilers on each. IBM's compilers on the G5 and Intel's compilers on the Core Duo. For floating point, 13.0 on the
That's
G5.
pretty solid. I don't know how you could be.
27.1
Oh my
on the Core
goodness.
Duo for 2.1. And so in
Heavens
the
to
most
Betsy.
important benchmarks of performance, 2 to 3x. Now everything's not going to run 2 to 3x. You know, the disks aren't 2 to 3x faster, etc. But on the most important benchmarks, 2 to 3 times faster. Every iMac is now got dual processors in it. Every iMac.
So if we get some context, 2 to 3x performance, right? What does that actually translate to? We don't see that anymore. The days of 2 to 3x performance, the 90s and the 2000s had that, but in the 2010s, 2 to 3x is not, it doesn't happen. Even when you go from KB Lake, which was quad core chips, to, was it Comet Lake? Whatever lake they came up with. I lost track of Intel's naming scheme once they forgot how to make processors. But when they increased the core counts, you were seeing 40, 50, 60 even % gains in some cases. But that's nowhere near 60% performance gains is what has gotten us really excited in the last 3 years. This is 300% that they were looking at in 2006. Could this happen again? I don't know.
I think
That's it. That's my
I think
take.
so.
If it could happen again, that would be insane, because then, I mean, if you're talking about 2 to 3x gains, then that means you take a MacBook that scores 4600 and you're on par with a Core i9 if you 2 to 3x that performance.
Yeah.
That would be unbelievable. A 13-inch MacBook Pro out there killing an i9. Now, I'm not sure that that's going to happen because, quite frankly, from a business perspective, you don't need to do that. You don't need to beat an i9 in a 13-inch MacBook Pro. So as much as we like to look at these, existing A12Z benchmarks and go, oh, wow, if you just extrapolate that, add some more cores, add some active cooling, then it should be no problem to beat a Core i9 in a 13-inch MacBook Pro. But marketing-wise, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You want to save some of that power and make people pay for it. It's not a judgment. It's just how businesses work. So in the mid-2000s, 2 to 3x gains were common. That was something that happened, and that got people to upgrade. And keep in mind that computers also had a much shorter lifespan back then. So you were trying to get people to buy new stuff more often. Part of Apple's marketing now is that you can buy it and keep it for a long time. And part of the way that you do that is you have slower performance upgrades over time, which means you support things for longer and your stuff works for a long period of time. In 2006, you were not going to be using a Mac for 7 years. That was not a thing in the 2000s, but it is now. So 2 to 3x gains, I think, could be possible, but are unlikely just from a marketing perspective. The way I could see it happening is, because we all know Apple loves their charts. They love to put their charts and be like, it's up to 75% faster than the previous generation, stuff like that. So what we will probably see is they will be outperforming any comparable Intel chip. I don't think they're going to category jump like that. Like, they're not going to go 13-inch iMac leap or 13-inch iMac. They're not going to have a 13-inch MacBook Pro leapfrogging the 16-inch and being more powerful than that. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty unlikely. So we could see something like let's actually. This gave me an idea. So if we have a 13-inch MacBook Pro supposedly coming at the end of this year, and in theory, they are going to continue to sell the 16-inch with Intel at least until 2021. Probably not. We don't really know what the timeline looks like for that. But iMac, MacBook Pro 13, likely coming out around October. So what does that look like? Well, a 16-inch MacBook Pro with the Core i7-9750H scores 5837 in Geekbench multi-core. So I would definitely posit that at least in most configurations, that is probably the ceiling for a 13-inch MacBook Pro performance, because otherwise it would be a bit of a weird spot if they had a 13-inch outperforming the more expensive counterpart.
Right.
Not to say that that's impossible, and there certainly have been times where things have overlapped, but if I were to guess, I'd say that's probably what they're targeting. Being able to say, look at this, Apple Silicon is able to perform on par with a 16-inch MacBook Pro, or like up to a 16-inch MacBook Pro, and it's using less power, it's got more cores, it's better in every single way, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that serves a dual purpose of, one, not completely shutting down sales of the 16-inch, and two, showing exactly what Apple Silicon has to offer. I think that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Man, that would be crazy. Outperforming 6-core computers and a 13-inch. I think that could happen. All right, let's see what else we've got.
So, but it's not just the hardware. It's the software too. Mac OS X Tiger 10.4.4 is running entirely natively on the Intel Core Duo. And that's not just the operating system. That's all the applications too. They are all running
I would hope.
completely natively on the Intel Core Duo.
If not, that would be
Everything
problematic.
we're doing now,
Yeah.
everything Apple is doing is what we call universal. It runs on both the PowerPC and Intel processors. As a matter of fact, these two new products we just introduced today, they are universal. The disks inside these boxes we are shipping today
We
run
skipped
on
all
both
of that stuff.
PowerPC and Intel. And as a matter of fact, you just saw them running on Intel because I've been using a new iMac with a Core Duo processor.
Oh my goodness, he did it again. I had no idea.
We had no idea. I hope they don't do that with the
drink that smart
13-inch. Keep the design the same
And as I mentioned,
and do the same thing there.
this is
That would
bundled
suck.
with every new Mac.
Or with an iMac, heaven forbid.
Our
With a 12-year-old,
apps-
No.
12-year-old design.
We are going to
pretty
have our
much.
Pro apps
Yeah.
universal in March. This is Final Cut, Aperture, and Logic Pro. And if you've got the latest and greatest version of one of these Pro apps, you can trade in the discs for new universal discs that'll run on PowerPC and Intel for just $49. We call it a crossgrade for just $49.
Ooh, wow. God, this
All
is
of
back
our
when they used to
developers,
charge for
of
operating
course,
system updates
are in the process of
Yeah.
making their applications universal too.
How you said
We
universal
didn't tell
Ah!
any of our developers that we were going to be announcing these systems as early as today, because we like a good secret as much as the next person. But they've been marching steadily towards making universal products, and several have been announced at Macworld here already. And one of them I just wanted to point out by a major company, Quark. Quark has announced the next version of its premier product, Quark Express, is going to be completely universal. And they've announced a beta program here at Macworld, and the beta is universal right from the start. So we're starting to see things like this already. We're thrilled with this. Now, until our developers get all their apps universal, we are shipping a technology with every new Mac with an Intel processor called Rosetta. And Rosetta runs most PowerPC applications completely transparently. And one of the applications that's not yet universal that most of us use that runs fabulously under Rosetta is Office. And so until Office gets completely native, I think everybody's going to have just a fine experience running it under Rosetta. And what I'd love to do is invite Roz Ho, the general manager of the Macintosh business unit.
And what I'd like to do is skip that.
I just want to see if I have this.
Do you have...
I have, let me see if this is, oh no, this is not the one I was thinking of. I have a bunch of old software boxes. Like, here's some random one that I found. But there's your Universal logo.
Oh, look at that.
So,
Wow. Look at that
yeah.
personal connection to history.
Yep.
You love to see that. Okay, I'm skipping through the rest of that nonsense because no one cares about that. I'm trying to figure out one of the other things. I'm trying to figure out where how long PowerPC Macs were supported, because I know some of them got discontinued sooner than others, but the most recent ones, I think, because in 2006 they were all shipping with Tiger. I think they got 10.5, but I don't think any of the PowerPC Macs got 10.6. I could be wrong. I'm sure someone's going to tell me that I'm a moron in the chat, but they did not get supported for as long as we can expect Intel to. That's another key difference. And a lot of people have been commenting on my content that's been going over this, and they're going, Intel Macs are going to be obsolete in a year and a half. They're not. That's ridiculous. We can look at some parallels from 2006, but don't look at other parallels from 2006. A lot has changed. Let's go ahead and bring back Steve to talk about the pricing and configuration.
So, 2 models of the new iMac, 17-inch with a 1.83 gigahertz Core Duo, very fast front side bus, 160 gigabyte drive. We got much faster graphics, an ATI Radeon X1600, wireless networking, iSight, and Apple Remote for $12.99, and a 20-inch model, a little beefier, faster processor for $16.99. And again, these machines 2 to 3 times faster in the spec benchmarks, and they are shipping today. So we could not be happier with this. This ushers in a new generation of iMacs. This is the first, based on Intel processors, using not old technology, but Intel's latest and greatest technology, the new Intel Core Duo, which we're very happy with. And we are going to be
6 months later when Core 2 Duo came out,
transitioning our entire product line this calendar year. So throughout the months of this calendar year, you will hear about announcements as each product line transitions over, and we will have them all transitioned over by the end of this calendar year. Now,
again, much faster than they promised 7 months ago.
Just to let people know what
this
we're
is
doing,
a copyright nightmare.
TV ad, and I'd like to premiere it for you now.
Well, sorry Steve, but not going to happen. What a great ad that was. I
That
enjoyed
ad
that.
was actually, I think that's the one. No, it wasn't. It was the iPhone 3GS that I'm thinking of. But there was one ad where they copied some like movie or something, and they almost got in trouble for it. And it
Really?
looked the same. I think it was an iPhone 3GS ad though, but it's the same kind of looking.
I don't think I remember that one.
There was something where they copied. It was like almost shot for shot. They copied some like movie or music video or something, and then
That's
there was,
funny.
Like a thing about that. I don't think it was that though.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you like it. So, this is what we're up to today, and I'm really glad you liked everything. But there is one more thing.
Oh boy.
You know, there's been this pesky little problem of the PowerBooks. You know, it's not a secret.
Now I'm wondering if this is what we're going to see in October. A MacBook Pro 13-inch. It's the first MacBook to use custom Apple Silicon. It's the same design, but now it's 2 to 3 times. Well, not 2 to 3 times, but now it's like 100% faster than it used to be. And you know, we have this new platform, and here it is. It looks the same, but it's a lot faster, or it looks similar, something like that. And then they go, oh, but one more thing about those iMacs. They haven't been touched in a while until today.
I could see that.
We could do that.
that we've been trying to shoehorn a G5 into the PowerBook and have been unable to do so because of its power consumption, being unrealistic in such a small package. We've done everything engineering that was possible engineering-wise. We've consulted every possible high authority, And one of the things we said when we were switching to Intel was it wasn't just about performance, it was about performance per watt, because that was what was going to let us get these things into notebooks. So let's take a look at where we came out, performance per watt. If you take a look at the G4 chip that we have in the PowerBooks today, it's got 0.27 performance per watt. Now, to put a G5 in, which has got a lot higher performance, we needed a higher performance per watt too. So
I think this one's going to be a different material too. Watch.
Well, it turned out that the G5 was even worse than the G4 in terms of performance per watt, which is what kept us from doing what we wanted to.
Intel's going to be a different material.
But the Core Duo was designed for this from the start. Look at that. And so it is
maybe it's a different graph that I'm thinking of, but either way, really nasty. Look at this.
G4 and
look at the
4.5 times better than the G5. And so today we are introducing a new notebook computer that we are calling the MacBook Pro.
Wow.
It's a new name.
It's a new name.
It's a new name because we're kind of done with power and because we want Mac in the name of our products. So MacBook Pro. And this is the new MacBook Pro. It has
pretty similar.
An Intel Core Duo chip in it, the same as we're putting in the new iMac, which means that there are going to be dual processors in every MacBook Pro.
That was pretty big.
So,
yeah.
What does this yield? This is hard to believe, but this is what the numbers tell us. 4 to 5 times faster than the PowerBook G4.
Could you imagine that in a MacBook? 4 to 5 times? These things are screamers. He said it.
Let's take a look at the numbers.
Let's.
So, a PowerBook G4 compared to the new MacBook Pro Core Duo. Integer, 4.5 times faster, 6.7 to 30.3. Floating point, 5.2 times faster, 4.9 to 25.6. 4.5 and 5.2 times faster. So, the new MacBook Pro is the fastest Mac notebook ever, obviously.
Obviously.
It's also the thinnest. It's an inch thin, and it's even a hair thinner than the 17-inch PowerBook.
Oh, good.
The thinnest one we've ever shipped. It's got some amazing new features, too. First of all, it's got a 15.4-inch widescreen LCD display that is as bright as our cinema displays. Really bright.
The PowerBook G4 was at 15.2 inches, a little less wide.
It's got an iSight camera built in.
That was huge. That was huge at the time. They'd never done that before.
Yeah, that's true.
So now you can have video conferencing right out of the box and on the go. It's great. For those of you that ever carried an iSight camera with you with a PowerBook, boy, this is heaven. So video conferencing to go. And let me just go ahead and give you a demo of this.
Those bezels are pretty thin, actually.
Yeah.
They actually got thicker.
Let's see now.
The bezels got thicker on the unibody. Oh, this is a funny.
Oh, there's
This
Phil.
is a good demo.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go ahead and call Phil. Where's Phil, I wonder? There he is.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Phil. How you doing?
Pretty good. I'm out here in the audience. I got a brand new MacBook Pro with its built-in iSight camera. It's a blast.
It's a blast.
Phil right there.
Oh, it's so funny. Look at them go.
Oh, boy.
This is totally cool. I can have so much fun. Watch this. Woo! The world is...
Oh, my gosh.
The world does revolve around me.
We've known that for quite some time. This is really great. Well, thank you, Phil.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
This is awesome.
Travis is here. It's a blast.
So video conferencing on the go. You just saw it working over wireless networking. It just all works right out of the box. And another great feature is we've got the IR sensor and the Apple remote. And so we have front row built right in to the new MacBook Pro.
Perfect for schools to disable.
So you can enjoy your media from across the room. Best media experience.
Yeah, on a
in the world.
15-inch device from across the
Another
room.
really cool feature.
Oh, wow. Nice episode of The
We
Office.
call this new feature MagSafe.
Oh,
Now,
Best
how
invention.
many of you
it's a good
have
one.
ever had your notebook go flying off its work surface when somebody caught your power adapter cord in their foot?
I do now that they
Right?
removed MagSafe.
Whether it's your
Yeah.
pet or your kid or your roommate. Well, this is going to end that. Because the MagSafe connector is a new power adapter that we got with a new connector that's magnetically held in. And if when the cord gets yanked, it just pulls right off. It works beautifully.
So good.
And this is going to save us all a lot of hassle, you with getting your notebooks fixed, us with having to fix them. It's going to save us all a lot of work because it
Us
just
with having
yanks
to
right
fix
out,
them.
nothing gets damaged.
Oh, man.
And patent pending, the new MagSafe power adapter. So, 1 inch thin,
1 inch thin,
5.6 pounds.
not thick.
The new
That's right.
MacBook Pro. It's got some amazing standard features. Just to review them, an iSight video camera, Apple remote with front row, MagSafe power connector, backlit keyboard with the ambient light sensor, scrolling trackpad, which is fantastic, sudden motion sensor, which, as you know, Apple invented and holds all the patents for, a DVI video out,
Back
which
when
will
we
even
had
drive
spinning
your
hard
30-inch
Yeah.
cinema display if you wanted to. And, of course, full digital, optical, as well as analog audio in and out. So these are just the standard features.
Ah, ports.
We're offering the MacBook
remember
Pro
those.
in 2 models. A 1999 model with a 1.67 gigahertz Intel Core Duo, 667 megahertz frontside bus, which is 4 times faster than the PowerBook it's replacing. 0.5 gigabyte of memory, much faster graphics. Again, the
See,
ATI Radeon
Apple has
X1600
always been
graphics
expensive.
chip,
People are always like, oh, they're
built-in
getting so
wireless
expensive.
networking, and
Let
the
me
new
run an
Express
inflation
card
on
slot,
that.
which is the new industry standard built right into the MacBook Pro from the start. And a $24.99 model, which is faster processor, more memory, bigger hard drive for those folks that need a little bit more.
Okay, just for some context, they had 2 models. One $2,000, and what was the other one? $24.99.
Yeah.
So $2,000 is $2,500 today. So that's already more expensive. And $2,500 then was $3,179.
Oof.
So whenever people are like, "Oh, the MacBook is getting so expensive," they keep upping the price. No, they don't. They don't. The unibody did get less expensive. There's no doubt that they jumped in price from the unibody because it was, I think, $17.99 for the 15-inch in 2011 and 2012, if I'm not mistaken. Which, granted, today is still a lot more. Let's do 2012. $17.99 is $2,000 today. So it is marginally more expensive, but give or take, the 15-inch MacBook, even the PowerBook, they're all around $2,000, somewhere in the low twos, low to mid twos. It doesn't change that much. The iPhone definitely has gotten more expensive, but the MacBook Pro has not, and it's a myth whenever people tell you that they're hiking the prices every year. They're not.
Yeah.
The new
Good point.
MacBook Pro, 4 to 5 times faster, will be shipping in February. We are taking orders starting today. If you want one, I would suggest you get your order in early. And we are thrilled with this product, and we'll be shipping them next month. So, the new MacBook Pro, it's joining the Mac family along with the new iMac. We're going to transition all of our products over to be using Intel processors through the course of this year. And if you'd like, I can show you that Intel ad one more time. Let's go ahead and run it.
Uh-oh.
What a great ad. I enjoyed that ad for the second time.
Yes, fantastic ad.
So, as you know, we had a pretty busy year last year, lots of new products. But while we were doing all those new products, all the work for these new products was also happening. And I would like all the folks from Apple that have worked on the new iMac, the new MacBook Pro, iLife, iWork, all of the OS software for these new Intel-powered Macs to stand up and just let us recognize their hard work. Thank you.
That's really nice.
They'll probably do that this time around as well, if I had to guess.
Yeah, they should.
These folks did an incredible job. And I'd like to recognize one other group of people, most of whom are not here today, and that's the folks at Intel who we've partnered with, who've also done an incredible job helping us. I'd like to just recognize them too. Thank you.
No longer are we giving an applause to Intel. So that's the end of that keynote. We'll stop the screen share and we'll give some analysis. Real quick, before we jump into this, I want to talk about the time frame for the complete transition. So, as we just saw, January, the iMac was released. The MacBook Pro was also announced, as we just saw, but came out in February. The Mac Mini got updated with a Core Solo. They used to have those, Core Solo, and Core Duo. That came out February 28th, 2006. Then there was the MacBook, the white plastic MacBook, which came out in May 2006, and then the Mac Pro with the dual core Xeons came out in August of 2006. And the MacBook Air didn't exist yet, obviously. And then again at the end of 2006 in like October, they did the iMac, MacBook, and MacBook Pro, and the Mac Mini, actually, I think. The Core 2 Duo Mac Mini. No, the Mac Mini was later. So they did those three again in October of 2006 as well. So that's really quick.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're gonna. I think it would be a bit optimistic to claim that by, let's see, if we do the math on that, by May of 2021, the entire Apple lineup will be switched, and then the Mac Pro will get done at WWDC next year. I think that's going to be too quick. I don't think they can do it that fast. But especially because Intel was already, a company making processors,
Right.
and the Core 2 Duo was coming out regardless. Apple Silicon isn't something that already exists, and we're just adopting it. So I think the Pro stuff, the high end, the Mac Pro probably won't get done until 2021 end of 2022, if I had to guess. But I think by WWDC next year, I think we're going to have most of the lineup on Apple Silicon. That's my guess.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And yeah, like you were saying, this is kind of new territory for Apple, whereas Intel was obviously more established. But clearly, I mean, if they're making these iPad processors that are already really good, they can get their lower and mid-tier products up to Apple Silicon pretty quickly. Yeah, the higher tier stuff like the Mac Pro and the iMac Pro and all that, I'm interested to see what they do, but it definitely won't be as fast because Apple has more work to do this time.
But then again, we also know that we don't know how much work they've already done, because they've been wanting to do this for a while. There was articles that came out. I'm actually talking about this. Or no, did I already talk about this? No. I already made a video about this. I get confused about what I've published and what I haven't published. Or we talked about, it was the 12-inch MacBook video. Skylake was the tipping point for Apple because Skylake had a lot of reliability issues. They had the issues of actually shrinking down their die size, going down to 10 nanometer, all of these issues. So Apple has been working on this switch for about 3 to 4 years. The A12Z is already 2 years old. So as far as we know, they may already have developed processors that are ready for these really high-end things. We just don't have that information yet.
That's true.
But what we do know is that the A12Z, you could literally put it in a MacBook Pro, a 13-inch MacBook Pro, and sell it.
Yeah.
Just as it is. And even then, that would be a decent product because the MacBook Pro processors, the 13-inch ones, use 28 watts. When you run Cinebench, they get up into the 30s sometimes. An A12Z does not use 30 watts of power. So already, if you were to just literally Control X the Core i5 and Control V, well, Command, it's a Mac, and Command V an A12Z, you would have the same Mac with better performance, better optimization as well, and it would probably run at like negative 15 degrees Celsius because it would not generate any heat, and you'd probably get 18 hours of battery life right now with what we already have.
That's true.
It's not an exaggeration, right? Like,
That's true.
let me find out. What is the size of the battery size iPad Pro? You have a 2018 iPad Pro. How's your battery life?
It's fantastic. Here's my 2018 iPad Pro. Battery life is fantastic. Like one thing that's really nice is the standby is incredible. Obviously with the efficiency cores, but
Yeah.
sometimes I'll leave this thing for a few days and I'll come back and it hasn't dropped much and all my data is synced, all my notifications are there and whatever. But even when I'm using it for like full stuff, it'll last. Like when I was back in the before times when we were actually at school and I was using it like a lot for notes and all that kind of stuff, it would last a couple days, you know, between charges.
Really?
Like it would.
So would you
good.
say? I mean, what do they? I don't remember what they claim. They claim like 12 or 13 hours.
Yeah, I mean, let
me pull it up.
That.
Yeah, so you'd say it's because that's the other thing is that the battery life quotes that they give for the Mac are always inaccurate because Intel is very strange. But the iPad and the iPhone battery life promises almost always hit their targets because they know how they work. They know what they're doing.
Right.
I'm trying to find where maybe it fits in the tech specs. Okay. So, with an iPad Pro, well, first of all, the battery size is 28.65 watt hours, whereas a MacBook Pro, the 13-inch, has 52. So it's twice as much battery. So, if you were to hypothetically have a processor with the same power draw and efficiency, they claim 10 hours of surfing the web on Wi-Fi or watching video for the iPad Pro. So, if you double the battery, 20-hour battery life.
Yeah.
That's some simple math. And I think that it's absolutely feasible that, because some people have been saying, well, what if people have been proposing that what they'll do in the MacBooks is keep the power draw the same and scale up the performance. I don't think that's probably going to happen. I think they're going to want better performance, like 50% more performance, and then just everything else just goes to battery life. Yeah. Apple has always touted battery life. Every single keynote, every single thing that they revealed, they always quote the battery life. And I think with this, we'll be able to, if you were to get maybe a 15-watt chip instead of the 7 that an A12Z is, so you get better performance and still get like 15, 16 hours of battery. That would be insane.
Yeah, and I don't think it's that crazy that it
No, exactly. Someone said 16-inch with 100 watt. Yeah, that could you
Oh, yeah.
imagine? Oh my gosh, it's insane.
That's what I'm
And
looking forward to.
yeah, I mean, so Noah, you held off on the 16-inch last year. What was the reason that you held up? Obviously, you didn't know about Apple Silicon, but what prevented you from switching?
Well, I mean, I have a 2018 15-inch. It's pretty well spec'd. It has an i9 and it has a terabyte SSD.
And then you have
16 gigs of RAM.
16 or 32.
It's 16 gigs of RAM.
And you have the 560X, not the Vega.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the 2018. It's a decently spec'd computer, and I think in 2018 it was like one of the upper tier ones.
Oh yeah, that was over 3,000.
Yeah, but
I mean, you didn't pay for it.
no, that was a whole story.
We could honestly do a whole live stream about how Noah got that computer.
That would actually be.
We should do that. Maybe we could
We
do that
should.
this weekend.
I have to look up my times table. Yeah, there was this whole story, this whole like 3-month story how my 2017 MacBook Pro turned into 2018. So maybe we could do that.
We'll talk that one out. We'll plan out another live stream for that.
Yeah, but the main reason why I didn't update, because obviously it's it's a nice computer.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like it wasn't really worth it. There wasn't like a huge difference. Like obviously it's a nice computer, but it wasn't like a crazy insane difference, in terms of upgrading. I definitely feel like, if you have this, Apple Silicon Mac, and I like to be on the cutting edge of things, and if they do a little bit of a redesign and the battery life is amazing and all that stuff, like that would compel me to upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm going to upgrade regardless because that's part of the job.
Of course.
But the 16-inch was a substantial update, mainly in terms of value, not necessarily performance, because they used the same processors as the 15-inch 2019, but obviously with better cooling. I have the 2.3 gigahertz i9, and it outperforms the 2.4 gigahertz i9 on the old one that was extra money. So you're getting better performance at a lower price. You're also getting the graphics, which are like the 5300 base graphics, outperform the Vega 20 $350 extra graphics. So the main benefit was you don't have the butterfly keyboard. You don't have to worry about thermal throttling. You're going to get the same chips, but they perform a little bit better, and they're not going to cook themselves to death. You don't have to pay for the extra graphics. And you get more storage as standard, 512 and now a terabyte. So it was basically like, okay, they listened to what we didn't like and they fixed all of it, but it wasn't a new revolutionary computer.
Right.
And I think that was, I mean, obviously at the time we didn't know when the Apple Silicon transition was going to be coming, but I think for most people, if you're looking for a 16-inch right now, wait. I don't think you're going to have to wait super duper long, and I think it's worth waiting for. And in fact, I'm actually kind of wondering now, maybe, you know how they made the 16-inch thinner or thicker because they needed extra cooling?
Right.
I also wonder, because that was the only time, to my knowledge, that Apple has made a notebook thicker than the one it replaces.
True.
I'm fairly confident, at least in the past 20 years or so, I don't think that has ever happened with like a direct successor. So I almost wonder if they did that for cooling, but also so that when they come out with the new MacBook Pro, they can say, look how much thinner it is.
Yeah.
You see? It's all part of the plan.
I could see it.
Right? Because then they don't have to compare it to the 15s, which are thinner than the 16s. They didn't talk about that. But now they can say it's 17% less volume. Remember, that's the one that they love because they shrink the footprint and the thickness, and then they go, ooh, the volume.
Yeah.
The only thing that worries me about the battery life thing is that they would basically just say, well, we could just hit 10 hours of battery with less battery and just make it thinner instead of boosting the battery life. You know what I mean?
That's That's true.
It's very Apple.
I would like to think that they would make the batteries somewhat better, but not the full. Like they could reduce the volume of or the capacity of the batteries.
Yeah.
But I don't. I would think that they wouldn't go for. I don't think they would go for same great battery life. I think they'd want to at least say that it's a couple hours better as one of their like big.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
things.
it would be like 10 to 12 hours.
Sure.
Like currently it's 10 hours. They'll go up to 13, 14. Instead of going all the way to 20 like they probably could.
Right.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, there were two super chats earlier that we didn't get to.
Let's go back and do those now. Okay, here's one. I'm going up. I can't find the other one.
The other one was a little while ago.
Okay, I can find it. I don't know if I'll be able to pull it up on screen here, but I think I can find it. Okay, so we can talk about this one. They might bring back the iBook as the first ARM Mac. I don't think they would call it the iBook,
Right.
because I think I is kind of done.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've been hearing. So here, okay, I'm gonna hit you with an idea because I've been talking about this on Twitter, and I don't know if other people remember it or have really been aware of this. And it was something that I started to think about yesterday, and then a couple people were sending some articles that were a similar idea. If you were to have Apple Silicon, the main benefit of that is you get great performance and it's super low. Like you don't need a ton of cooling. You don't need super thick device.
Right.
At that point, why would you have a 13-inch MacBook Air and a 13-inch MacBook Pro?
Yeah.
So we've sort of been thinking, well, what if they were to completely cut down their product line into, you have two sizes of iMac 24, iMac 27 or 30. And then you have two MacBooks, a 14-inch and a 16-inch, or a 13-inch and a 16-inch. And you just end up with MacBook and MacBook Pro. iPhone 11, iPhone 11 Pro. iPad, iPad Pro.
Yeah.
That could be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they could easily, if they wanted to make one 13-inch or 14-inch computer, they could have, the lower tier would be MacBook Air comparable, and then the upper tier would be MacBook Pro comparable, and then maybe something in the middle. But they could easily consolidate their product lines and just do it by tiers. Like that's
what they used to do. Remember the 2x2 grid?
Right.
We talked about that in our other. They used to do one notebook for pros, one notebook for consumers, one desktop for pros, one desktop for consumers. They could bring that back. Personally, I'd rather they didn't, to be honest, because I like the ability to make decisions beyond, like, I think that they should bring back the 12-inch MacBook and have a sub-$1,000 MacBook. Mm-hmm. That would be a killer hit. Then have, like, maybe get rid of the MacBook Air, but then have two different, a 13 or a 14-inch with a Pro notebook, and then, or with Pro capabilities, whatever they call it, and then have like the big Pro. I think 3 would make the most sense for me. Budget, small Pro, big Pro. I would like to see that.
Yeah.
MacBook SE.
Oh, jeez.
You have MacBook, MacBook Pro, and then MacBook SE.
Maybe.
Also, I'd like to point out that our good friend Jake Neibauer is here.
Yes.
It's an honor to have. Maybe we should get Jake on one of these. He's not a YouTuber or anything. He's just a friend of ours.
He used to be.
He used to be a YouTuber, Jake Sky 100.
Yeah.
I remember those were the good old days, like 10 years ago. Jake should be a YouTuber again.
Yeah.
By the way, the other super chat that we missed that I forgot about. I'd love to see the iMac as a giant iPad, thin bezels, rounded corners that attaches magnetically to the stand from the Pro display. Maybe even touch. I don't know about that. First of all, I hope that they don't make the iMac go with the Pro Display stand, because there is no way I'm paying $1,000 to prop up my iMac. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And also, it's pretty impractical that it would detach and be a giant tablet, because, I mean, you couldn't really use a 27-inch tablet. And, well, no, that wouldn't work.
I mean, I guess they're talking about like a Surface Studio kind of thing. I don't know,
Yeah.
an iMac and use your Apple Pencil on it, like. I mean, I would.
I don't know. I could see there being. I mean, with Big Sur, I think a touch Mac is totally possible.
Yeah.
I think it's possible. All right, we'll do a few more questions. We'll keep our eye on the chat, but this was a long one. This is a long stream. We watched 2 keynotes. So we're going to take some questions, and then we'll head out. Let's just take a look here. MacBook Air gets the A13 and MacBook Pro gets the A14. No, that's not going to happen. It's going to be a completely new name. In fact, actually, when I was on GadgetCast a couple of days ago, last week, I think Rene Ritchie brought up that they've stopped using the motion coprocessor branding.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think they stopped doing that when they switched to Bionic in 2017, as far as I'm aware. So it is possible that they could have M be the prefix for the new processors.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, and like no one's gonna confuse that with the motion coprocessor, so it's not that big
Yeah,
of a
I
deal.
think, I mean, techies, we're gonna be like, oh, the motion coprocessor, why did they use this branding? But most people aren't gonna remember that, and I think this would be more memorable. So I think it would be pretty easy to overwrite the coprocessor thing pretty quickly, especially since it hasn't been. Even if they've had it, they haven't been talking about it for years at this point.
Right, and the other thing, I think the first motion coprocessor was the M7, right? I think it was the A7 came out and they started it at like
because the A7 switched to 64-bit.
Right, so if they start the Mac, and hypothetically if they start at M1, or maybe they'll start at 14 to be with like the iPhone, but wherever they start,
I don't know.
It'll be different, I think. I don't think there will be too much confusion. Yeah,
I think, and that's the other thing, is because like right now the A series chips are annual. You get the 8, and they also coincide with iOS, which is why they started with A4. So for 10 years, iOS and the iPhone chip have lined up. That makes sense. But I don't think that necessarily translates to a Mac, because you don't necessarily have one single processor that goes across all of your Macs for that year.
True.
So I don't think it's going to be like M14. I think that would be... I think they might do... Because the problem is you have to have a way to distinguish between levels and generations. So you need 2 different things that can change so that makes sense. So A13, A14, that doesn't translate. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I think they could do... I don't know.
They could don't know. Number X and number Z or something like that. So the number changes every year, and then the suffix denotes how powerful it is.
So like an M13, M15, M17, and then M23, M25, M27.
It could be, or the suffix could be a letter. Like it could be like an M1 and M1X and M1Z. That would be my guess. If I had to bet money, that would be my guess.
That I see where you're going with that. I like that. M M17, M1X, M1Z. And then next year would be M2, M2X, M2Z.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That, sir, is quite an interesting take. Let's put up another question here. dedicated graphics Macs will stay on Intel for some time. That's the thing that we can't. That's the thing that we don't know anything about. A MacBook Pro, a Mac Mini, all of that is super easy to translate over to. That's the stuff that you can go very, very easily over to Apple Silicon, because integrated graphics, iPad Pro is already creaming integrated graphics. The iPad Pro graphics are about equivalent to an Xbox One X or a GT 1030, somewhere around there. By the way, thank you, Greg, for acknowledging my GadgetCast plug. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with that. Again, I don't know if it's impossible to have Apple Silicon plus AMD graphics, or if they're going to want to go completely, essentially making APUs.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know, because I feel like it would probably be technically possible. I'm curious about like the drivers and how all that stuff would work, because it's ARM now, and a driver is a very low level system thing. So I have a feeling that would probably be affected by the switch more than a program that you run.
So it would be harder to use dedicated graphics by AMD with an ARM based system than it would be.
My guess is that they would have to do major work on the drivers, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not super well versed in like the low level Mac stuff, but if I had to guess, I would say that the drivers for for all this stuff, for all these graphics cards, would have to be majorly tweaked or rewritten in order to work on ARM. Now it's something that could happen, but I think that it would definitely be tricky if that's the way that they're going to go.
Yeah, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think it's, and I feel like if they were going to use, it's just very strange, because it's not like graphics aren't important.
Right.
They always emphasize graphics performance. They spent a whole 30 minutes talking about the MPX modules and the Vega 2 Duo stuff in the Mac Pro. Graphics are clearly important. They talk about gaming. They showed Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
So how do you
take time for that?
Yeah. It's definitely going to be an interesting thing to watch. I do want to pull up a super chat here.
Yeah.
My product stack: iPad Pro 11, MacBook Touch or whatever they call it, 12.9 inch, MacBook Pro 13.3, MacBook Pro 16. I don't know that they would kill an iPad Pro 12.9 in favor of
iPad Pro
a combo. I don't know. I don't see the iPad and MacBook Air merging. Even though they've got trackpad support and keyboard support and all that stuff, I could see 12-inch, 14-inch, 16-inch. The problem is I don't think you would see a 12.9-inch MacBook and a 13.3-inch MacBook, because that's not big enough of a differentiation. That's only 0.4 of an inch difference. So I don't think that would make sense. But 12.9, 14, 16, that could be. I could see that. Have 12.9 starting at $899. So it would be is that what the 12.9-inch iPad Pro starts at?
Yeah, I think so.
So MacBook 12.9, MacBook Pro 14, MacBook Pro Max at 16-inch.
Oh boy.
Oh god, I hope they don't bring Max. If they make a MacBook Pro Max, I'm gonna jump off a bridge.
The MacBook Pro.
No! No! Ah! They better not.
No, they're not gonna do that.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see. Do we have any other good questions here? Oh yeah, ProMotion. I do hope that we can get ProMotion. I think we're gonna get mini LED pretty soon. I think all the new gen stuff is gonna have mini LED going forward. We're supposedly getting a mini LED iPad Pro, MacBook Pro, iMac. I think that would make sense that we'll have that just kind of going forward. I don't know about ProMotion though, because I don't know if you can do. I'm not super familiar with mini LED. Can you do high refresh rate on a mini LED screen? I'm assuming, but it might be a lot more tricky.
I have no clue. I feel like Apple will. I would be surprised if Apple launches an iPad Pro with mini LED and it's a worse refresh rate, because I really like the ProMotion on the iPad. I'd be surprised if they made
Oh, that's right. That was because I was thinking from a MacBook, like if you're gonna add mini LED, is it worth adding ProMotion? But from the iPad Pro, you're not gonna remove it.
Right.
So then I guess it must be. I mean, I'm sure it's possible, but it's always a question with Apple of whether they're gonna do it. But I guess if they're gonna, I think it would be so weird if they were to remove ProMotion. So I guess they must have some way to do mini LED plus ProMotion, which means I want it on the Mac.
Yeah.
I want it. I want an iMac with ProMotion so bad. Could you imagine? That'd be amazing.
It would be nice.
That would be truly amazing.
And the 16-inch, can't you adjust the refresh rate on the 16-inch?
Yeah, you can adjust it down.
Well, so maybe
to 48.
Maybe you can adjust it up next time. We'll see.
I would hope. I really do hope. Okay, wow, we're getting up on 2 hours here. Let's wrap this up. This was a good one. This was a good chat.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining us. We will be back. We might do at some point get Noah back and do a discussion about how he ended up with a 2018 MacBook Pro that he didn't pay for.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, he did not steal it.
That is
just
true.
Want to put that out there. He did not steal it.
Do not call the police. There's no need.
There's need, but for other reasons.
For other reasons. Not
He's wanted for grand larceny in 16 states. But apart from that, and none of those were a MacBook Pro.
Right.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us. Let's just say hello to you. Hello.
Hi.
And with that, we'll see you guys in the next video. I've got a video coming out tomorrow. Noah's got a video that he's going to work on.
Yes, eventually.
Yeah, so subscribe to Noah. His link is in the description, so there's no reason not to. All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in the next one.
All right. Bye.